Hello, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Peter Shamoon, and I was assigned this service learning project in coordination with my IA risk management class led by Dr. Ann Conkey. Now, today we're going to be talking about internet threats. We're going to go into different topics of internet threats, and we're going to deep dive more into that. So, we're going to talk about the accessibility of hackers. How about hackers can be anywhere to attack their target. We'll also be discussing different types of attacks on the internet and how you can avoid them and what to look out for. As well as, what people don't realize is as technology improves, hackers become more sophisticated and become more resourceful and creative. So we'll also be touching on, what's the big deal? Why should you care? How would this affect you? And also we're going to talk about staying secure and staying safe. They're two different things. However, they go hand in hand with each other. Also, we'll finish this presentation with some final takeaways on what you can implement in your digital life just to keep you a little bit safer. And also, we're going to talk about, how do you know if you're infected or not? So let's go through those and let's deep dive into this. So, COVID-19 and its impact on cybersecurity. COVID-19 has changed the industry tremendously. It forced companies to act swiftly and overnight, be able to support the infrastructure of working from home. For me and my job, what I do, I'm a cybersecurity intern. And all of a sudden, 2 weeks right into the job, I started working from home. And I was amazed at the thousands of employees that my work was able to support with that infrastructure. And I commend them a lot for that. And a lot of around the world, companies have been forced to adjust because of COVID-19. However, because of COVID-19, there's bigger need for employee activity data, cloud security training, or not even cloud security training, just cloud security training and awareness, endpoint protection, email monitoring, security controls. Essentially, every part of security was and honestly still is being affected. So, in regard to thinking, can you get hacked? Are you vulnerable? Are you a risk now that you work from home? Or, are you safe? You have to think about it from the aspect that if we can work from home, hackers can hack from home. They can hack anywhere, essentially. They can be in a different country and you can still be compromised by them. You might be asking, how so, Pete? Well, that's what we're going to get into first. Because you have to be aware of these threats in order to stay protected. So, first thing we're going to talk about is a computer virus. So, a virus is a malicious program that is designed to replicate itself continuously and transfer from computer to computer. Now, viruses can be spread through the internet, local networks, or something as simple as a USB flash drive that someone finds on the ground. They plug it in their computer and their computer's infected with that virus. So, good indicators to tell if your computer has been infected by a virus is checking your antivirus software daily, making sure that there's no alerts, making sure that it's running, making sure that it's checking and it's scanning still. And also another thing that you can kind of look out for is, is your internet connection slower? Is your computer all of a sudden, not working as well? And also sometimes a good thing to look out for is a lot of times these viruses, they'll disable firewall and your antivirus. But however, don't rely on any notifications because the virus can be programmed to avoid those notifications and shut those down. So you want to check that manually to make sure everything is running right. So now we're going to talk about Trojan malware. A Trojan horse, Trojan, or Trojan malware as some call it, it is a type of malicious code, software, or program that appears to be legitimate but can attain a full access and control of your computer. You have to think of more of the Trojan horse, kind of just how they did it way back in the day, back in, I think it was Sparta, I think. I forgot which city it was, but one of the ancient cities. And they were able to sneak in. And that's kind of what the Trojan does. It's a vessel, right? And it attaches onto these quote unquote safe programs. And what's happening from there is that people people think it's fine. The computer scans it, says it's fine, doesn't realize it. All of a sudden, you download that bad program. You download that attachment. Then all of a sudden, you're infected, but you're completely oblivious to it. You didn't know and your computer didn't catch it. So The application that has the Trojan attached to it most of the time appears to be completely safe. However, it is hidden within that program. So where Trojans are different to than viruses is that like Trojans don't replicate from computer to computer like viruses do. They have to be installed by the user. And so when you install that safe looking program, it can be coded to be able to take full access of your computer, damage and corrupt your files, and even steal your private data. So, if it's hidden, how do you catch it? And how do you make sure that it doesn't happen to you? So you want to make sure you run consistent scans of your software. And I'm not talking about your computer, but your software, because that's what a lot of times where the malware is hidden. Have it scheduled on a weekly or twice a week basis. Honestly, if you can do it every day, better to be safe than sorry. Also, you can encrypt your folders and programs which can help deter and slow down the Trojan, and at least give you enough time to either try to catch it, or you'll be able to notice something's weird, so you'll be able to investigate more, and you'll mitigate as much damage as possible. So the next thing we're going to be reviewing are keyloggers. So what is a keylogger? Why is it so dangerous? And we're going to talk about how keyloggers are actually getting really smart. So the word keylogger itself is not a bad term. Keyloggers are used in several applications for non-malicious purposes, such as parental controls, to track their kids' activity, and even sometimes companies will use keyloggers to see what their employees are doing. And they'll track certain events based on different triggers that are programmed. So, for example, let's just say I own ABC company and my worker, John, is, I want to know that what is he doing when he's on, a certain site, or let's just, random site. And what's going to happen is that the keylogger is going to be activated once he goes to that site and tell me exactly what he's typing, what he's doing, and then information from there. And the reason keyloggers are so dangerous is because keyloggers don't pose a threat to most systems, especially home devices, so they often go unnoticed. And keyloggers are delivered in many different ways, but most commonly they're delivered by Trojans, which is what we discussed in the last slide. Keyloggers can be programmed to be only initiated in certain settings. For example, when you go to your company's internal site, the keylogger will automatically capture your credentials that you're typing. Not only would the hacker have access into the company's internal site, but they would be using your credentials, which honestly is pretty scary. So the next thing we're going to talk about, we're going to kind of move a little bit away from the technical side of internet threats, and we're going to go into social engineering. What is it? How do you detect when someone is trying to extract information from you? And how to protect your family and friends from social engineering. As you see here in the, what we have here is, phone call. This is Dr. Ron. Your son got in a car accident and we need his social security number. Social engineering is the use of human interaction, whether that be through the phone, in person, email, etc. Social engineering manipulates their target into performing malicious actions or extracting confidential and private information. The main goal of a hacker using social engineering is to either gain access to a restricted area or to obtain private information about their target using that victim as a scapegoat or a vessel for their true intentions. So you always want to be aware of what you're sharing with people, especially if you don't know them very well. However, that doesn't mean people that you do know won't try and deceive you. So it's always better to be safe than sorry, and kind of keep your business on a need-to-know basis, because honestly, that's probably the safest thing to do. And as far as your family and your friends, you want to educate them on social engineering, and that they should be extremely private about their personal information, even if it seems as innocent about asking you about your dog's name or your family and your childhood, because a lot of that can give hints to certain passwords that hackers will try to break into. So the next thing we're going to go over are phishing emails. So phishing, how do you recognize a malicious phishing email? Can I just delete it? So phishing emails are a type of social engineering mixed with a little bit of a technical aspect. So phishing emails use deception to either steal information from the target, obtain access to their network, install malware, etc. And phishing emails try to seem as legitimate as possible, hence why it's one of the biggest causes for data breaches against users and large corporations. Well, yes, of course, you can just delete the email. The problem is that it's very hard to differentiate between a well-made email and a phishing email, or a well-made phishing email and a legitimate email. My apologies. So you have to understand what you're looking for in those phishing emails. There are different types of phishing, such as spear phishing, where there's a targeted attack and you use a little bit more of personal information in there. Or there's a link manipulation where someone's clicking on a link that it looks like that same website, it looks like the Starbucks login. You type your login information, and they get all your credentials. Or smishing, or also known as mobile phishing, where you get a text and they're like, "Oh, you've been exposed to coronavirus. Click here to move on to next steps," but that's actually a scam. And lately, especially in my work, I've been seeing a lot of voice phishing emails, which are also called vishing emails. So it's definitely interesting how creative hackers and malicious actors are trying to get in order to get data. So what we're going to talk about next is how to recognize a phishing email. Any emails that you have that you see that come into your inbox that have anything to do with banking, government information, or even emails that just seem a little off. Now, you want to look at the sender address. However, it was disguised as Bank of America. You can see it wasn't that. It was a Comcast.net domain. So working directly with phishing emails at work is, I do it all the time, every day, all day. If you notice that the receiving users are private, this is undisclosed recipients. Why you have to kind of it takes a little bit of common sense, a little bit of just paying a little bit of attention. If you're getting a banking alert with a link and it wants you to go to that, why is it going to send to multiple people? Does that make sense? No, because they're not going to tell you unusual activity happened on your banking account debit card and then send it to 100 other people. And with phishing emails, there's usually a call to action, as you can see there. So it says, online banking alert, dear member, please sign into your account. And you can see they messed up the formatting. So that's usually also a telltale sign that it's usually a bad email. But the biggest thing and easiest thing to do is just make sure you don't click it, but hover over that link to see what it really is. And like you see here, it's not a Bank of America link. So why you should care? Over the past 23 years I've been alive, the rise of technology and the internet has skyrocketed and evolved to levels that we did not think we'd even be able to. So how does this make us more susceptible to getting hacked? Think about what data is being collected and transferred when you apply for a job or buy a piece of clothing from an online clothing store. Think about it, right? Credit card data. What articles of clothing are you looking at? What size? What color? How long did you stay on that page when you were shopping online? Did you go to other similar websites to find, a cheaper product? This is all the data that's being collected. And you say, oh, well, Pete, it's not a big deal. Like, I don't really care about that. However, over time, they start to know your habits, what time you're online. They start to know what websites you go to, and they're going to target those websites to grab your data. So it all plays, hand to hand. And for example, I'll give another example in regards to just a simple job application. Social security information, because I know everyone's probably filled out a job application before. You usually got to put your social security in there. Also, your personal info based on your background and experience, which some of that information can be used to scam you or a family member. So like, for example, hacker sees that, I live in Birmingham and they see my address and they say, oh, they go to my mom. Peter was hurt. He was this. I work with him at Blue Cross. And they would have never known that unless they got that information. All it takes is one mistake to give the hacker a point of entry into your computer. Going into a bad website, downloading a malicious file by accident, clicking on a malicious link that was sent to you by email. And, some people say, oh, I'm fine. I have antivirus installed on my computer. Or, oh, I'm not going to worry about it. MacBooks don't get viruses. So let me just say this. I have 5 different antiviruses installed in 5 different endpoints in my home lab. 4 out of those 5 I was able to inject malware without the antivirus noticing/detecting anything. Also, I personally found exploits to gain access to Mac computers, which proves the point that they aren't untouchable. When it comes to cybersecurity, especially as hackers' knowledge grows and the technology they have access to becomes more powerful, we're becoming more susceptible to cyber attacks, increasing by the day. Now, we're going to talk about how can you tell you're infected. Well, antivirus software. Antivirus can give you an alert, and what will happen is, it'll give you an alert, so you're infected, and it'll either quarantine it, or it'll delete that file, or, it'll give you a multitude of options if it's able to catch it. A lot of times, also a good thing to look out for is all of a sudden you lost a lot of disk space. Well, why is it doing that? Because of all the data that the malware is collecting and all of the actions that it's doing. Especially, it's going to take up a lot of RAM as well. It's something also to look at. Also, as well as pop-ups. Always want to make sure, any kind of weird pop-ups, you want to just kind of clean your computer, take care of all that. And what a lot of people don't realize, computers have feelings too, Listen to your computer and look for any weird sounds, alerts, or strange messages. And if you think you've been compromised, check your files to make sure there have been no malicious executable files in your hard drive. Because that's super important, because a lot of those files get hidden in there that a lot of people miss. And what will happen is that they'll transfer all their data to their hard drive, they'll wipe the computer, then they'll put that malware right back on the new computer, the fresh drive. And if your computer is slow, you may want to take a deeper look as to why, especially if you have a newer computer and, you've never had that issue before, and all of a sudden just things start to act really weird. And another thing that a lot of people realize and miss is, they say, my computer is fine, but my browser is not. You always want to make sure. So as you can see here in the screen, this is Windows Support Alerts, a bunch of different, pop-ups. You want to make sure you check for any third-party add-ons in your browser settings. And you can see there's way too many pop-ups, such as the ones shown in the image on the slide. And you also want to look for any strange-looking programs you didn't install. That doesn't look familiar. You have to keep an eye out like that. Always pay attention to how the browser is working and take notice and do something about it if you do see something acting strange. Lastly, just to kind of wrap everything up, don't forget to stay secure and stay safe. A lot of people don't realize that staying secure and staying safe are two different things. Protecting your data and your devices. However, people don't realize even if you are secure, practice cybersecurity best practices and procedures. Because this is the thing, you can be protected, but if you're careless, you can still get your computer infected. And you'll be compromised, far too gone by the time you're able to notice anything or by the time your antivirus does anything. Also, another couple of good tips is create strong passwords. Having different passwords for different sites and making sure that they're not compromised. And they have several tools and applications to where you can check if they've been compromised or leaked on the dark web, for example. And be aware of the websites that you go on and the links that you click on, making sure that they're safe websites, they're websites that you've been to before, they're trustworthy and they're reliable. I've seen way too many people come in and they'll go in and they'll go and they'll be like, oh, like I got a virus and this and that. It's just a pop-up link, but it's because of those websites they're going to. So just be more aware and be careful. And lastly, be careful who you talk to, how much you open up to others you don't know that well, because a lot of people underestimate the power of the voice and the power of social engineering. So it's something you always want to look out for and just keep an open eye on. So I just want to say to everyone, and thank you so much for listening. My name is Peter Shamoon, once again. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at shamoope@udmercy.edu. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a wonderful night. Thanks.